Hi there, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So, guys, today is going to be a bit of an interesting one, like my own kind of analogy and spin and the way I look at things in terms of this specific piece of scripture. But it goes out to all my females out there, and the inspiration for this word or analogy today comes from Proverbs 8 mostly, and then also Proverbs 7. So, basically, what happens in Proverbs 8 is that wisdom is personified, but then wisdom is also explained. It's almost like what you get a taste or an idea of what wisdom looks like, sounds like, behaves like. Now, obviously, throughout Proverbs, wisdom is amplified. Wisdom is described. Wisdom is the word of the book, essentially, and just explains what it looks like as well, and what certain choices make for good ones, make for good choices, and why you choose those ones. So that's just the book of Proverbs. But in this particular verse, it's a bit more specific, and I think especially in contrast with Proverbs 7. Now, in Proverbs 7, firstly, what happens there initially is that this young man, this son, is being told to keep wisdom very close and near and dear to him. Make sure that you keep wisdom very close to him. Then the same individual is now giving this advice to this young man, to their son. He's saying, look, this one night I saw something. Let me actually go to the scripture. So this is Proverbs 7 from verse 6. So it says, at the window of my house, I looked out through the lattice. I saw among the simple, I noticed among the young men, a youth who lacked judgment. He was going down the street near her corner, walking along in the direction of her house at twilight, as the day was fading, as the dark of night set in. Then out came a woman to meet him. This is verse 10. Dressed like a prostitute and with crafty intent. 11. She is loud and defiant. Her feet never stay at home. Now in the street, now in the squares, at every corner she lurks. She took hold of him and kissed him, and with a brazen face she said, I have fellowship offerings at home. Today I fulfilled my vows. Anyway, it goes on to explain how this lady basically lured this guy in, and it's a young man, as they describe, lured this guy in and obviously wanted to do some other things with him, even though she was married. But she was doing it in a seductive way. She was trying to tempt him, and essentially what they call her is an adulteress, right? And so this is basically a warning against an adulteress, addressing a young man to say, look, this is what you shouldn't fall for. Don't go for this. This is a warning, right? And so for me, it's in contrast, obviously, with chapter 8, which speaks about wisdom and what wisdom looks like, what wisdom sounds like. And of course, with the female in chapter 7, this is unwise. This is not what wisdom looks like. And I think it also assists the guy, the man who received this advice, both and so both of these scripture, to think about and understand what the difference is, what the difference looks like between non-wisdom or simpleness or foolishness, and then also wisdom. And it gives me this vibe of what you should be attracted to, but also as a male now in this sense, but it goes for females as well. But I'm just referring to what the context of the text. So what wisdom looks like, and then what it doesn't look like, right? Essentially. Now, like I said, in chapter 8, it personifies wisdom as female. And I get this from the text because of, let me just read the first few verses of the chapter. So chapter 8, I think from roughly verse 1 to 3. Does not wisdom call out? Does not understanding raise her voice? On the heights along the way where the paths meet, she takes her stand. Beside the gates leading into the city, at the entrances, she cries aloud. Now, what I am not saying is that wisdom is an actual female human being. This is not what I'm saying. This is not what I'm getting from the text. I'm just saying it's being personified. And personification just means to represent a concept or quality in human form. And like I said, personifies it as female. And to me, that's interesting. But it does other things as well. It talks about wisdom, and like I said, what wisdom sounds like, looks like, feels like to a certain extent. And if you want some more detail in terms of what a woman of noble character, that I would say goes hand in hand with being wise as female, looks like, you can go to Proverbs 31, second part of Proverbs 31. But anyway, so like I said, this is about wisdom, what it looks like, sounds like, and all of these things. And so I think it tries to emphasize to the individual reading this, more specifically men back in the day, that this is bad, this is good, this is what you look out for, and this is what you shouldn't do. This is the choices you should make. This is the choices you shouldn't make, right? But anyway, so what I want to emphasize and highlight is how interesting it is that it uses this individual who wrote this uses female in terms of how to describe it. Now, I feel like there's so many different theories out there in terms of why, because we obviously do not know this individual's intent per se as to why they use that, and we can go into that, but not for today, right? But what I tend to like about it is that for some reason it made me think of Adam and Eve in the garden, and just when the fall of man happened, what the instance that created that fall to have happened, the choices that was made there, that allowed for us, or that initiated this fall of man process. Why did that bring me there? It brought me there because I felt that it was almost like part of this redemption, or this contrast to the choice that Eve made in the garden to take the fruit, and then also to listen, and to take the fruit and to listen to the serpent. It's also almost in contrast with that, but to me, it's almost like a redemptiveness. There's a redemption in it, to see that female can be looked at in a good light, in a wise light, right? So that's how I see it, right? And this is where my brain goes sometimes. And so I feel like it does do that as well, to say like, look, there's horrible brazen females or adulterous females, but then there's also like wise females, right? And when you personify wisdom with female, it gives you the sense of, oh, female, so female can be looked at in a good light, in a good way. And I don't know, for me, that forms part of it, right? That redemptive process of how that a female is maybe looked at, but then also, like I said, explains what wisdom looks like, and the contrast between a bad female and a good female in this sense, and just essentially what the choices that you'd make if you have wisdom. Anyway, so for me as females, looking at it in this way, right, and looking at the instance or the event in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, where Eve obviously took of the fruit, was misled by the serpent, bit of the fruit, then proceeded to give to her husband, not her Burke, her husband, her husband, and he obviously took it and received it and bit of it. Now, both of them are not innocent in this, because obviously Eve made a bad choice to listen to the serpent and to take a bite of that, and Adam also made the bad choice to actually take it from his wife, bite of it, especially when God said, not this tree, do not eat of its fruit. This is the one thing I'm warning you guys against, and don't do it. But anyway, so both of them chose to take a bite. And of course, that choice that Eve made there was unwise, and then of course influenced her husband, but the husband also knew better, right? So it's just a whole mess of non-wisdom, so foolishness and nonsense. So that's why I'm saying it assists in putting female in a better light by personifying wisdom as female, right? But so in my mind, as females, we do have a choice. We either listen to the serpent or we listen to God. Now, obviously, this goes for men as well, but I'm just saying in terms of this and this context. And so, like I said, yeah, we have this choice to make, or that we can make, between listening to the serpent or listening to God. By the way, guys, I didn't say this. I wanted to mention it earlier, but this person in chapter 7, and like I said, I didn't read everything, but it basically lures this guy, into the space of just doing wrong things, right? it's giving Jezebel vibes, that influence, that negative influence rather, that just horribleness, that wickedness and evilness, basically, right? But anyway, like I was saying, we have this choice. Now, with these two pieces of scripture, I feel like these are the extremes, right? The extreme is this female that's just doing nonsense, extremely in wickedness, adulterousness, seductiveness, and bad and ill intent, and all of that thing. And then you find your wisdom that is just this wonderful personification of, or this wonderful example of what wisdom looks like, sounds like, acts like, traces wisdom makes, whatever. So there's this huge difference here. It's extremes. And so you find many different versions in between. And so even though that's the case, our drive and our purpose should be to be more wise, right? Biblically wise, not worldly wise, because there is a huge difference. And so the thing that I want us to know and understand is that while we are on this path of life, we need to know that we are going to have many choices put before us. And so our want and our intent and our desire should be to make the wise choice. And as females, I'm putting that choice before you, right? To make the right choices, to make the wise choices, to not be a bad influence, because we have a huge influence. And this is the other thing that stood out to me, the emphasis on the influence that we have. Obviously, everyone has a huge influence and can have a huge influence. But just the mere fact that the influence means a lot, it means something. And so we should make it count towards righteousness, make it count towards God's kingdom, make it count towards the values and the models and just the goodness and the righteousness that God instills in us and wants to instill in us, and that the Bible speaks on and of. And so I just wanted to bring that before you. Just wanted you to think about that for like a minute or two, and just recognize that there is influence there. Even though we are female, I know sometimes in the Christian space, females are sometimes looked down on, and in general, not necessarily for any particular reason. But I just want to sort of encourage you to say that, look, we are here for a purpose. God has purpose for each and every one of our lives. And that individual purpose for each one of our lives means something to Him, means something to His kingdom, meaning we contribute. And we have choices to make, right? We have a responsibility to make the right choice and to make the choice to choose God and to choose His ways. And thereby walk this path of salvation, walk this path of righteousness. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe that meant something to you. Maybe it was just a bit all over the place for someone. Maybe I went from A to Z in 2 seconds. But yeah, I hope it means something to you. I hope that it encouraged you. And to my females out there, also to the men to look at, please read these scriptures. Literally, it will save your life. If you tend to lean more to temptation, it doesn't matter what kind of temptation, whether you're male or female, but just an encouragement there to read the scriptures, especially Proverbs. If you're going through like a weird and just a time where you are indecisive in a sense, and maybe there's just a lot of weird influences around you, definitely Proverbs is fantastic for that. But anyway, so read the scripture, especially the ones that I read. Maybe God will speak to you in a different way. Maybe He will highlight different things. And that's the beauty of it, right? He speaks to us in different ways. But anyway, hope this means something to you. Hope that this encourages you. Hope that this blesses you. And hope that you have a great week further, guys. God bless.